The red sun of Zentara Prime was dying, not from old age, but from the poison clouds that covered its surface like a thick blanket of death. From space, the planet looked sick. Green spots spread across the continents where alien spores ate through everything that lived. Hive Commander Thexra watched from the bridge of his bioship as another world fell to the Veltar Empire. His ship was alive like all Veltar vessels. The walls pulsed with a slow heartbeat. Veins of blue liquid carried nutrients through the organic hull. The bridge itself was a large chamber inside the creature's head, with windows that were actually the ship's eyes. Thexra's body was covered in hard black chitin that reflected the dying planet's red light. His forearms moved across living controls that responded to his touch like trained pets. Too large compound. Eyes let him see in many directions at once. Behind him, dozens of other Veltar officers worked at their stations. They all moved with the same purpose, like parts of one giant mind. Status report. Thexra clicked in the Veltar language that sounded like breaking glass. Scout Prime Kefta approached with quick insect-like steps. She was smaller than the commander, built for speed rather than war. Her thin limbs carried sensor equipment that grew from her body like extra organs. The Zentari defense fleet is destroyed, she reported. Their last ships fell 30 minutes ago. The spore clouds have covered 60% of their homeworld. All major cities are silent. Thexra felt satisfaction flow through the hive mind, connection that linked all Veltar. 300 years of conquest had taught him that all species fell the same way. First came fear when they saw the massive biofleets, then desperate fighting that only delayed the inevitable. Finally, silence as the spores did their work. What of their military leaders? Thexra asked. Admiral Velnox barricaded himself in the planetary command center. Our ground forces are breaking through the last barriers now. Through the ship's eyes, Thexra could see the surface of Zentara Prime. Massive Veltar bioships hung in the atmosphere like floating cities. Each one was breeding new warriors in its belly, while releasing more spores into the air. The Zentari had been proud of their crystal cities and energy weapons. Now those same cities were being dissolved by Veltar acid rain. The Zentari had lasted, longer than most species. Their silver ships moved like dancing lights and their energy beams could cut through Veltar bioarmor. But numbers always won in the end. The Veltar could lose 100 ships and grow them back within a month. The Zentari had to build each vessel by hand. Commander, another officer called out. We are receiving a transmission from the planetary. Surface. Put it through. The bridge filled with the image of Admiral Velnox. The Zentari leader was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. His uniform was torn and green blood dripped from a wound on his forehead. Behind him, Thexra could see Zentari soldiers holding their positions as Veltar bio-warriors broke through the walls. This is Admiral Velnox of the Zentari Confederation, the alien said in Galactic Common Language. His voice was steady despite the chaos around him. I know you can hear this, Veltar. I know you record everything for your hive queens to study. Thexra was curious. Most species begged for mercy at the end. Others cursed their conquerors. This one seemed different. For 3 centuries you have swept across this galaxy like a plague, Velnox continued. You consume everything in your path. You turn living worlds into dead nurseries for your young. You believe nothing can stop you. An explosion shook the command center. Zentari soldiers fired their energy weapons at something off-screen. The light from their beams reflected off Velnox's face. But this galaxy is vast, the Admiral said. There are species you have not met, forces you have not tested. I have seen the edge of known space where young races build their first ships and dream of the stars. Another explosion, closer this time. Velnox looked directly into the camera, with his silver eyes. One day you will meet a species that does not break. A people who fight not just with weapons but with something you have forgotten. Something your hive mind cannot understand. What does he speak of? Kefta asked in their own language. Thexra remained silent. The Zentari were known for their intelligence networks. They had explored more of the galaxy than most species. You will find them in a small spiral arm, Far from here, Velnok said. A yellow star with a blue world. They call themselves humans, and when you meet them, you will learn what it means to fight an enemy that refuses to die. The transmission cut off as Veltar biowarriors finally broke into the command center. Through his connection to the hive mind, Thexra felt the satisfaction of his ground troops as they completed their mission, but the Admiral's words stayed with him. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Veltar had crushed over 2,000 species. Some had been stronger, others had been more advanced. All had fallen the same way. Scout Prime, Thexra ordered. Search our star charts for yellow stars in the spiral arm sectors. Look for signs of this species called humans. Kefta's antennae twitched with interest. You believe the Zentari spoke truth? The Zentari were excellent at gathering intelligence. If they say there is something worth noting, we should investigate. Over the next few hours, Kefta worked with the ship's biocomputers to scan long-range sensor data. The Veltar had been moving toward the galaxy's edge, consuming worlds in their path. Soon they would reach sectors that had never known their touch. I have found references to this species, Kefta reported. They appear to be young, perhaps only recently achieving space travel. Their technology seems basic, metal ships instead of biovessels, chemical rockets instead of living propulsion. Numbers? Unknown. They appear to control only a small number of star systems. Intelligence suggests they fight among themselves frequently. Thexra felt amusement ripple through. The hive mind, a primitive warlike species that built crude metal ships. The Zentari admiral had been grasping at false hope. Continue monitoring, he ordered. But do not let this distract from our primary mission. We have 3 more sectors to clear before we reach the galaxy's edge. As the biofleet prepared to leave Zentara Prime, Thexra watched the dying world through his ship's eyes. The spores had done their work well. In a few months, this planet would be covered in Veltar hive cities. New bioships would grow in orbital wombs. The Zentari would be forgotten, like all the other species that had fallen before the swarm. But something about Admiral Velnox's words bothered him. The Zentari leader had seemed too confident for someone facing death. He had spoken of humans like he knew some secret that the Veltar did not. Thexra pushed the thoughts away. The hive mind did not dwell on doubts or fears. They were concepts, for individual minds, not for a species that thought as one. Whatever these humans were, they would fall like all the others. The Veltar had never met a species that could stand against them for long. As the biofleet moved toward its next target, Thexra did not notice the small sensor probe that had been watching from the edge of the system. The probe recorded everything, before slipping into hyperspace, carrying news of Zentara Prime's fall to distant ears that had been waiting for such information. The galaxy was vast, and secrets traveled slowly through the dark between stars. But somewhere in a small spiral, arm, around a yellow star, beings called humans were about to learn that they were no longer alone. Captain Lee Do-Yun sat in his command chair aboard the destroyer Indomitable, watching the stars through the main view screen. His ship was old by human standards, built 20 years ago during the border wars with the Keth Confederation. The metal hull showed scars from past battles, and the engines needed constant repair work, but she was still fast, and her crew knew how to fight. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Cho Hyejin from her station. "I'm picking up some strange signals from the edge of the system." Do-Hyun turned toward the young officer. Hyejin had joined the crew 6 months ago, fresh from the Naval Academy. She was smart and eager to prove herself, but she still jumped at every unusual reading. "What kind of signals?" he asked. "It's hard to say, sir. They're very faint, almost. It's like someone screaming, but through electronic channels." Lieutenant Commander Park Min-ho looked up from the tactical station. He had served with Do-Hyun for 8 years, through the Keth Wars and the pirate raids in the outer colonies. Min-ho understood battle patterns better than anyone Do-Hyun knew. "Could be equipment failure on one of the mining stations," Min-ho suggested. "No, sir," Hyejin replied, her fingers moving across her console. "These signals are coming from outside our system. Way outside. And they're not random. There are patterns here, like tactical data." Do-Hyun felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The Indomitable was on patrol duty in the Kepler 442 system. home to 3 small human colonies. It was supposed to be quiet work, checking on merchant ships and watching for pirates. They were not supposed to find mysterious signals from unknown sources. "Can you clean up the transmission?" he asked. "I'm trying, sir. Give me a few minutes." While Hyejin worked, Do-hyun looked around his bridge. Chief Engineer Kim Subin was at her station monitoring the ship's systems. Sobin was 35 years old and could fix anything that broke. She had kept the Indomitable running when newer ships had failed. The bridge itself was cramped and functional. Banks of screens showed star charts, sensor readings, and system status reports. Everything was built for efficiency rather than comfort. Human ships were not pretty, but they worked. "Got it," Hyejin announced, putting it on speakers. The bridge filled with the sound of alien voices speaking in a language that hurt to hear. The words sounded like breaking glass mixed with static. Behind the voices, Do-hyun could hear explosions and the sound of energy weapons firing. Then a different voice cut through the noise. This one spoke in Galactic Common, the trade language that most spacefaring species used. "This is Admiral Velnox of the Zentari Confederation. I know you can hear this, Veltar. I know you record everything, for your hive queens to study." Do-hyun had heard of the Zentari. They were an old species with advanced technology. Their traders sometimes visited human space, selling energy crystals and star maps. He had never heard of the Veltar. The transmission continued with the Zentari Admiral warning about some kind of invasion. When he mentioned humans, everyone on the bridge went silent. "Play that part again," Do-hyun ordered. "You will find them in a small spiral arm far from here. A yellow star with a blue world. They call themselves humans, and when you meet them you will learn what it means to fight an enemy that refuses to die." The transmission ended with sounds of battle and screaming. "When was this sent?" Do-hyun asked. "Based on the signal delay about 6 weeks ago," Hyejin replied. "The source was the Zentara system, roughly 400 light-years from here." Minho frowned at his tactical display. 400 light-years is a long way. Whatever happened there shouldn't affect us. "Unless these Veltar are heading in our direction," Subin said quietly. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the main view screen. In his 10 years as a ship captain, he had fought pirates, smugglers, and Keth raiders. But this felt different. The fear in the Zentari Admiral's voice had been real. "Hyejin, send a priority message to Fleet Command. Include the full transmission and our analysis. Tell them we might have a new threat moving toward human space." "Yes, sir." "Minho, I want long-range sensors on maximum range. Look for anything unusual." "Already on it, Captain. So far, nothing but normal space traffic." The next 3 days passed quietly. The Indomitable continued its patrol route, checking on mining stations and escort convoys. But Do-hyun could not shake the feeling that something was coming. On the 4th day, Minho called out from his station. "Captain, I've got something on long-range sensors, multiple contacts at the edge of the system." "How many?" Do-hyun asked, moving to look over Minho's shoulder. "Hard to say. They're still too far away for detailed scans, but they're big, sir. Really big." On screen, the view screen showed space at maximum magnification. At first, Do-hyun saw nothing but stars. Then Hyejin enhanced the image, and dark shapes appeared against the background of space. "Those aren't ships," Subin whispered. "They look like animals." She was right. The objects on screen moved like living creatures swimming through space. They had no straight lines or geometric shapes like human or alien ships. Instead, they curved and flowed like enormous sea creatures. "I'm reading biological materials," Minho reported. "These things are alive." Size estimate. The largest one is about 2 kilometers long. There are at least 12 of them. Do-hyun felt his mouth go dry. The biggest human warship was only 600 meters long. These creatures were massive. "Sir," Hyejin called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the lead creature. It's in the same language we heard from the Zentari recording. Can you translate any of it?" "Some of it, sir. They're scanning our ship. The transmission mentions something about primitive metal construction and individual warfare patterns." "They're studying us," Minho said. "Set course to intercept," Do-hyun ordered. "All hands to battle stations." "Sir?" Subin looked at him. with concern. "We're one ship against 12 of those things." "I know the odds," Do-hyun replied. "But we're the only human ship in this system. If we run, they'll go straight to the colonies." The Indomitable turned toward the alien vessels and accelerated. As they got closer, the creatures became more frightening. They had thick organic hulls that pulsed with internal light. Weapon ports opened like mouths along their sides. Smaller creatures, each one the size of a human fighter, swarmed around. The larger vessels like insects. "Range in 2 minutes, Minho announced. "Weapons ready," Do-hyun ordered. "Target the lead vessel." "Sir, we're receiving another transmission. This one is in Galactic Common." A new voice filled the bridge. It sounded like insects clicking and buzzing, but the words were clear. "Small metal vessel, you will stop your approach and prepare to be consumed. Your species will serve the Veltar Empire as all others have served." Do-hyun picked up the communications handset. "This is Captain Lee Do-hyun of the Human Federation destroyer Indomitable. You are trespassing in human space. Turn around and leave, or we will open fire." The alien voice made a sound like laughter. "You are one small ship. We are many. Submit now, and your death will be quick." "Counteroffer," Do-hyun said. "Come and try to take us." He nodded to Minho, who fired the ship's main guns. Plasma bolts streaked across space and slammed into the lead alien vessel. The creature's hull rippled where the shots hit, but it did not seem seriously damaged. "Minimal effect," Minho reported. "Their hull is absorbing most of the impact." The alien creatures began to move faster, spreading out to surround the Indomitable. They moved with a coordination that human ships could never match, like they were all controlled by one mind. "Take us into the asteroid field," Do-hyun ordered. "Let's see how well they fly through rocks." Subin pushed the engines to maximum power. The Indomitable raced toward a nearby asteroid field, with the alien creatures following close behind. As they entered the field, Do-hyun began using tactics he had learned fighting pirates. Hard to port, full reverse thrust. The ship spun around, a large asteroid, and fired at the nearest creature. This time the plasma bolts hit a softer section of hull and burned through the organic armor. "We hurt that one," Minho said with satisfaction. "Use the asteroids for cover. Keep moving. Don't let them surround us." For the next hour, the Indomitable played a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the rocks. The alien creatures were faster and more maneuverable, but they seemed confused by human tactics. They expected their enemy to fight in formation, not to dart and weave like a fighter craft. One by one, Do-hyun picked off the smaller creatures. When the larger vessels tried to corner him, he used the asteroids to block their weapons. When they spread out to hunt him, he concentrated his fire on isolated targets. "Sir," Yejin called out, "the aliens are transmitting again. They sound angry." The alien voice was no longer amused. "How do you fight without coordination? How do you function without the hive mind?" "Just lucky, I guess," Do-hyun replied, as Minho destroyed another small creature. By the end of the battle, 7 of the alien vessels were dead or dying. The remaining 5 had pulled back to the edge of the asteroid field. They seemed to be having some kind of conference. "They're transmitting data back toward their fleet," Yejin reported. "Long-range communication to something outside the system." "They're calling for help," Minho said. "Or warning their friends about us," Do-hyun replied. "Either way, we need to report this to Fleet Command immediately." Admiral Song Ji-won stood in the command center of New Busan Colony, watching the tactical displays with growing concern. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Do-hyun's encounter with the alien scouts. Since then, every human ship in the sector had been recalled to defend the outer colonies. "Report," Song ordered as Colonel Yoon Jae-hyun entered the command center. The Marine colonel was a tall man with scars on his face from the Keth border wars. His soldiers had been working day and night to prepare the colony's defenses. "All ground. Installations are ready, sir," Jae-hyun reported. "We've set up defensive positions around the main cities. Anti-aircraft guns are in place. The civilians have been moved to underground shelters." Song nodded and turned to Dr. Nam Sewa, who was studying data from the alien scout ships. The scientist had been working without sleep since the wreckage. arrived, trying to understand how the enemy vessels worked. "What have you learned?" Song asked. Seowa looked tired but excited. "These ships are unlike anything we've ever seen. They're completely biological. The hull is made of some kind of living tissue that can repair itself. The weapons grow out of the ship's body like organs." "Weaknesses? That's what's interesting," Seowa continued. "The biological systems seem to be controlled by electrical signals like a nervous system. Our EMP weapons might be very effective against them." Song felt a small spark of hope. Human ships were built to resist electromagnetic pulse attacks, but if the alien vessels relied on biological electricity, they might be vulnerable. "How long to modify our weapons?" he asked. "Give me 2 days and I can retrofit the main defense platforms. The ship weapons will take longer." "Do it," Song ordered. "Colonel, I want your men ready for anything. If these creatures are as dangerous, as Captain Do-hyun reports, we're going to need every advantage we can get." 24 hours later, the aliens arrived. The first sign was a ripple in space at the edge of the new Busan system. Then the stars seemed to bend and twist as massive shapes dropped out of hyperspace. Through the colony's telescopes, Song watched in horror as 100 alien bioships emerged from the void. Each vessel was enormous, some nearly 3 kilometers long. They moved through space like a school of deadly fish, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Smaller creatures swarmed around them in the thousands. "Dear God," someone whispered in the command center. Song activated the colony's communication system. "All stations, this is Admiral Song. The enemy fleet has arrived. Execute Defensive Plan Alpha. All civilians to emergency shelters immediately." The alien fleet moved toward New Busan with terrifying purpose. They did not spread out or try tactical maneuvers. They simply came forward like a living wall of death. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." "Put it through." The voice that filled the command center was cold and alien. It spoke in perfect galactic common, but with the clicking, buzzing accent of the Veltar. "Humans of New Busan Colony, I am Hive Commander Thexra of the Veltar Empire. Your species has insulted us by destroying our scouts. You will surrender immediately or we will take your world by force." Song picked up the microphone. "This is Admiral Song Jiwan of the Human Federation. New Busan is under our protection. If you want this world, you'll have to fight for it." "Very well," the alien replied. "We have crushed 2,000 species across 3 centuries. You will not be the first to resist us, and you will not be the last to fall." The alien fleet began to deploy for attack. The larger bioships moved into a formation that reminded Song of a hunting pack. Smaller vessels spread out to flank the colony's defenses. "Launch all fighters," Song ordered. "Activate defense platforms. All ground units to alert status." New Busan's 20 fighter craft launched from hidden bases around the colony. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but they were fast and well armed. The pilots had been briefed on the alien weaknesses that Dr. Seowa had discovered. The first wave of alien attackers came in like a swarm of angry insects. They moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Their weapons fired streams of bioacid that could eat through metal armor, but the human defenders had surprises waiting. "Fire EMP missiles," Song commanded. A dozen electromagnetic pulse warheads streaked toward the alien formation. When they exploded, invisible waves of electrical energy washed over the bioships. The effect was immediate and devastating. Alien vessels that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly began to drift and tumble. Their weapon fire became random and uncoordinated. "It works," Dr. Seowa shouted. "The EMP is disrupting their nervous systems." "Press the attack," Song ordered. Human fighters dove on the confused alien vessels, firing plasma cannons and EMP-tipped missiles. Several bioships exploded in gouts of yellow fire. Others crashed into each other, their biological pilots unable to control their vessels. But the aliens learned quickly. The second wave of attackers stayed farther apart, reducing the effectiveness of the EMP weapons. They also began targeting the human fighters with concentrated fire. "We're losing too many pilots," Colonel Jae-hyun reported from the ground. The aliens are adapting to our tactics. Song watched the tactical display with growing concern. For every alien ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The enemy seemed to have an endless supply of vessels. "Sir," the sensor operator called out. "Large alien ships are moving toward the planet's surface. They're preparing to land ground forces." Through the command center's windows, Song could see the alien bioships descending through the atmosphere like giant jellyfish. As they came closer, he could see that their hulls were opening like flowers, revealing dark interiors filled with moving shapes. "Colonel, your men are about to get company," Song warned. Jae-hyun activated his field communicator. "All units, alien landing craft incoming, remember your training. These things can be killed." The first alien ground forces touched down near the colony's main spaceport. They came out of their bioships in waves, moving with the same insect-like coordination as their space fleet. Each creature was about the size of a human but covered in black chitin armor. They had forearms that ended in razor-sharp claws, and their heads were dominated by large compound eyes. Jae-hyun's Marines opened fire from concealed positions around the spaceport. Their pulse rifles sent streams of blue energy into the alien ranks. The creatures were tough, but they could be killed with enough firepower. "They're not using cover," one Marine reported over the radio. "They just keep coming straight at us." "That's their weakness," Jae-hyun replied. "They think like a hive mind. They don't understand individual tactics." He was right. The alien warriors attacked in perfect formation, but they could not adapt when human soldiers used guerrilla tactics. Marines would pop up from hidden positions, fire a few shots, then disappear before the aliens could respond. But the numbers were overwhelming. For every alien warrior that fell, 10 more took its place. The aliens also had heavy weapons, living cannons that fired explosive biocharges. "We can't hold them much longer," Jae-hyun reported to Admiral Song. "They're starting to surround our positions." Song looked at the tactical display. The space battle was not going much better. Despite their initial success with EMP weapons, the human fleet was being slowly overwhelmed. The aliens simply had too many ships. "Dr. Sewa," Song called out. "Do you have any more surprises for us?" The scientist was hunched over her console, analyzing data from the battle. "I think so. The aliens seem to have some kind of command ship that coordinates their attacks. If we could destroy it, the others might become confused." "Which one is it?" "The largest bioship in the center of their formation. It's been sending control signals to the other vessels." Song studied the tactical display. The alien command ship was heavily protected by other vessels. Getting close enough to attack it would be suicide for any human pilot. Unless... "All fighters, this is Admiral Song. New target designation. I want every EMP weapon we have fired at the large command vessel in the center of their formation. Concentrate. All fire on that target." "Sir," one pilot replied, "that ship is surrounded. We'll never get close enough." "You don't need to get close," Song said. "Just get close enough to fire your missiles. The EMP effect should reach the command ship." It was a desperate plan, but it was their only chance. The remaining human fighters formed up for one final attack run. They flew straight into the heart of the alien formation, taking heavy fire from all sides. Half the fighters were destroyed before they could launch their missiles, but the remaining pilots held their course and fired everything they had at the alien command ship. A dozen EMP warheads exploded around the massive biovessel. The electromagnetic pulses tore through its biological nervous system like lightning. The creature writhed in space like a dying whale, then went still. Immediately, the other alien ships began to lose coordination. Some stopped moving entirely. Others fired at random targets, including their own vessels. "It worked," Dr. Sewa shouted. The command ship was controlling the entire fleet. On the ground, the alien warriors also became confused. Without central coordination, they began to mill around aimlessly. Jae-hyun's Marines pressed their attack, driving the disorganized creatures back toward their landing ships. Fleet Admiral Kim Tae-won floated in zero gravity aboard the battle station Thermopylae, watching the largest human fleet ever assembled prepare for war. Through the station's massive viewports, he could see 200 human warships spread across the star system in defensive formation. Every ship in the Human Federation had been called to this battle. Destroyers like the Indomitable hung next to massive battleships that had been pulled from Earth's home defense fleet. Carriers bristled with fighter craft, while support vessels worked frantically to supply ammunition and spare parts. The Indomitable herself floated near the station's command section. Captain Do-hyun had been promoted to Commodore and now commanded a squadron of 12 destroyers. His old ship had been rebuilt with new weapons designed specifically to fight the Veltar bio-vessels. "Admiral," called out Captain Oh Soo-young from the communication station. She commanded the battleship Seoul's Pride, the most powerful warship in the human fleet. Long-range sensors are detecting hyperspace distortions at the edge of the system. Tae-hwan felt his stomach tighten. For 6 months, human intelligence had been tracking the movements of the Veltar fleet. What was coming toward them was beyond anything humanity had ever faced. "How many ships?" he asked. "Preliminary count shows over 1,000 bio-vessels, sir. Some of them are larger than anything we've seen before. Put it on the main display." The central screen filled with a tactical view of the system's edge. Dark shapes were emerging from hyperspace like a plague of locusts. The Veltar fleet stretched across light years of space, moving toward the human positions with terrible purpose. At the center of the alien formation was a bioship so massive it could barely be called a vessel. It was more like a small moon made of living tissue, covered in weapon ports and launching bays. Smaller ships swarmed around it like antibodies protecting a vital organ. "That's their command ship," said Major Han Dong-hyuk, the Special Forces operative who had spent weeks behind enemy lines gathering intelligence. "The Hive Queen herself is aboard that monster." Tae-hwan had read Han's reports about Hive Queen Zexandra. She was ancient even by Veltar standards, a creature that had lived for over 1,000 years and commanded countless invasions. She had awakened from hibernation specifically to deal with the human threat. "All stations, this is Fleet Admiral Tae-hwan," he announced over the fleet communication system. "The enemy fleet has arrived. Execute Defensive Plan Omega. All civilian traffic is to clear the system immediately." Across the Thermopylae system, human ships moved into their assigned positions. The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Instead of meeting the Veltar in open battle, the human fleet would use the star system itself as a weapon. Over the past 6 months, human engineers had placed thousands of mines throughout the system. But these were not ordinary explosives. They were EMP mines, designed to disrupt the biological nervous systems that controlled Veltar vessels. The system's asteroid belt had been turned into a fortress. Hidden weapons platforms waited among the rocks, ready to fire on any ship that came within range. Fighter squadrons were concealed in asteroid caves, prepared to launch surprise attacks. Most importantly, a network of EMP satellites surrounded the system's star. If activated all at once, they could create an electromagnetic pulse large enough to affect every bioship in the system. "Sir," Soo-young reported, "the alien fleet is entering the outer system. They're maintaining formation but spreading out to avoid our minefields." "They've learned from our previous encounters," Tae-hwan observed. "They're not going to make the same mistakes twice." The Veltar fleet moved through space like a living thing. The bioships coordinated their movements with perfect precision, flowing around obstacles and adapting to threats with frightening intelligence. As they entered the asteroid belt, the hidden human weapons platforms opened fire. EMP missiles and plasma cannons struck the alien vessels from unexpected directions. Several bioships were disabled, their nervous systems scrambled by electromagnetic pulses. But the Veltar response was swift and overwhelming. The alien ships turned their massive weapons on the asteroid belt, dissolving entire rocks with streams of bioacid. Human weapons platforms died in flashes of yellow fire. "Launch all fighters," Tae-hwan ordered. "Begin Phase 2 of the defensive plan." From hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt, human fighter squadrons launched their attacks. They used hit and run tactics, striking at isolated alien vessels before disappearing back into the rocks. Commodore Do-hyun led his destroyer squadron in a charge against the alien flank. The Indomitable and her sister ships fired everything they had at a cluster of medium-sized biovessels. "Direct hits on multiple targets," reported the Indomitable's tactical officer. EMP weapons are effective, but they're adapting their shielding. Keep hitting them, Do-hyun ordered. Don't give them time to adjust. The battle raged across the entire star system. Human ships darted between asteroids, using the rocks for cover while they fired at the massive alien fleet. The Veltar vessels moved like a swarm of predators, coordinating their attacks with deadly efficiency. But something was different about this battle. The aliens were not just trying to destroy the human fleet. They were also studying human tactics, learning from every engagement. Admiral, Major Han reported from his reconnaissance post. The aliens are transmitting detailed tactical data back to their command ship. They're analyzing our fighting patterns in real time. Taewon realized what was happening. Hive Queen Zexandra was not just trying to win this battle. She was trying to understand how humans fought, so that future Veltar invasions would be prepared for human tactics. All ships, this is Admiral Taewon. New orders. Begin random tactical patterns. Do not repeat any maneuver twice. Keep the aliens guessing. It was a desperate strategy, but it began to show results. Human captains started making unpredictable moves, attacking when the aliens expected retreat, retreating when they expected attack. The Veltar fleet began to lose coordination as their predictive algorithms failed. The turning point came when Captain Soo-young led the Soul's Pride in a direct assault on one of the larger bioships. Instead of using long-range weapons, she ordered her ship to ram the alien vessel at full speed. The collision tore through the bioship's living hull like a knife through flesh. The Soul's Pride was badly damaged, but the alien vessel was dying, its biological systems shutting down one by one. This is Captain Soo-young, she reported over the fleet communication system. Their hulls are tough, but they can't handle kinetic impact. Ramming speed is effective. Other human captains began to follow her example. Ships that were too damaged to fight effectively turned themselves into guided missiles, ramming alien vessels at maximum velocity. The Veltar fleet began to show signs of confusion. Their perfect coordination started to break down as human unpredictability disrupted their tactical calculations. But the aliens still had overwhelming numbers. For every bioship that was destroyed, 3 more took its place. The human fleet was being slowly worn down despite their tactical advantages. Sir, Han reported, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the alien command ship. I think they're preparing some kind of superweapon. On the main display, the enormous bioship, at the center of the Veltar fleet, began to glow with internal light. Weapon ports along its hull opened like hungry mouths, revealing weapons larger than entire human destroyers. All ships, emergency scatter pattern, Taewon ordered. Get away from that thing now. The human fleet scattered just as the alien superweapon fired. A beam of concentrated bioenergy lanced across space, vaporizing everything in its path. 3 human destroyers that had been too slow to escape simply ceased to exist. We can't fight that thing with conventional weapons, Soo-young reported. Her ship was missing half its hull, but she was still fighting. It's too big and too well protected. Taewon looked at the tactical display and made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Activate the solar EMP network, he ordered. All satellites, full power discharge. Sir, the tactical officer protested. That will disable every electronic system in the system, including our own ships. I know, Taewon replied, but it's the only way to stop them. Around the system's star, hundreds of EMP satellites activated simultaneously. The electromagnetic pulse they created was larger than anything ever attempted. It raced outward from the star at the speed of light, washing over every ship in the system. The effect on the Veltar fleet was catastrophic. Bioships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly went dead in space. Their nervous systems, disrupted by the massive EMP, could no longer control their vessels. The enormous command ship was affected as well. Its superweapon powered down, and the creature began to drift helplessly through space. But the human ships were not immune to the pulse. Electronic systems failed throughout the fleet. Ships lost power, communication systems went dead, and life support began to fail. In the silence that followed, both fleets drifted helplessly through space. The battle had become a race to see which side could restore power first. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Commodore Do-hyun worked frantically with his engineering crew to restart the ship's systems. Emergency power came online first, followed by basic life support. 6 months after the Battle of Thermopylae, Admiral Lee Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching a sight that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. The massive space station Unity hung in orbit around Earth and docked. At its ports were ships from dozens of different species. Centauri crystal vessels floated next to Keth metal warships. Survivors from the Thorian Empire worked alongside refugees from conquered worlds that Do-hyun had never heard of. All of them had come to human space, seeking one thing: protection from the Veltar. Admiral, called out communications officer, Cho Hyejin, who had followed Do-hyun from the Indomitable to his new command. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the diplomatic section." "Put it through." The face of Ambassador Lim Yuna appeared on the main screen. She had been chosen to lead humanity's diplomatic efforts with the refugee species. Before the war, she had been a trade negotiator. Now she was helping to forge the largest alliance in galactic history. "Admiral Do-hyun," she said, "I need to brief you on the latest intelligence reports. We're learning more about the scope of the Veltar Empire, and it's worse than we thought." Do-hyun nodded grimly. "How much worse?" "The fleet we defeated at Thermopylae was just one of 12 sector fleets. The Veltar Empire controls over 10,000 star systems. We estimate their total military strength at more than 50,000 bioships." The bridge went quiet. The human fleet had barely survived an encounter with 1,000 alien vessels. Fighting 50,000 seemed impossible. "But there's also good news," Yuna continued. "Our victory has inspired resistance movements across the galaxy. Species that had been hiding or collaborating with the Veltar are now openly rebelling. The Empire is facing internal problems for the first time in centuries." Through the viewports, Do-hyun could see the proof of humanity's growing influence. The Indomitable, now upgraded with the latest anti-Veltar technology, led a squadron that included ships from 5 different species. Human tactics and weapons were being shared with anyone willing to fight the Empire. "What's the status of our new allies?" Do-hyun asked. "Growing every day," Yuna replied. "President Bae has authorized the formation of the Galactic Defense Alliance. We now have formal military agreements with 18 species, and more are joining each week." President Bae Min-jae had been a peace activist before the war. The idea that he was now leading a military alliance against a galactic empire would have been laughable a year ago. But the Veltar invasion had changed everything. "Admiral," interrupted Lieutenant Commander Park Min-ho from the tactical station, "we're receiving an emergency transmission from the outer patrol fleet." "What's the situation?" "Unknown contact at the edge of the system. It's transmitting human identification codes, but the signal is badly damaged." On screen, the main display showed a human exploration vessel that looked like it had been through hell. The New Horizon was missing half its hull, and emergency patches covered dozens of holes in its armor. Somehow it was still flying. "This is Captain Park Min-ho of the exploration vessel New Horizon," came a voice over the communication system. "We found something out here. Something that makes the Veltar look like insects, requesting immediate backup." Do-hyun felt a cold chill run down his spine. "Captain, this is Admiral Do-hyun. What did you encounter?" "We were exploring the galactic rim when we detected massive energy signatures. We thought it might be a Veltar staging area, so we moved in to investigate." The transmission crackled with static, but the captain's voice continued. "It wasn't Veltar, sir. It was something else. Something old. We found ruins on a dead world, bigger than anything we've ever seen, and they weren't empty." "Clarify, Captain." "There's something down there, Admiral. Something that's been sleeping for millions of years, and I think our war with the Veltar may have woken it up." Do-hyun exchanged glances with his bridge crew. After everything they had been through, the idea of an even greater threat was almost too much to bear. "Set course for the New Horizons position," he ordered, "and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we may need more than just anti-Veltar weapons." As the human fleet prepared to investigate this new mystery, events were unfolding in the depths of Veltar space that would change the course of the war. Hive Queen Zexandra floated in the organic chambers of her rebuilt command ship, connected to the Empire's vast bio-network by thousands of neural cables. Her defeat at Thermopylae had shaken the very foundations of Veltar society. For the first time in her 1,000-year life, she was questioning the hive mind's absolute authority. The humans had shown her something that should have been impossible. Individuals working together without central control, yet achieving coordination that rivaled the hive itself. "My queen," buzzed Scout Prime Kefta as she approached the neural chamber. "The other hive queens are demanding answers. They want to know how a primitive species could defeat our finest fleet." Zexandra's compound eyes focused on her subordinate. "What have you learned from studying the human prisoners? They are disturbing, my queen. Each one thinks independently, yet they share common goals. They have no biological connection to each other, yet they coordinate their actions through something they call trust." Trust? A concept we have no equivalent for in our language. It appears to be a voluntary sharing of purpose between individuals. They choose to work together, rather than being compelled by the hive mind. Zexandra processed this information through her vast neural network. The implications were staggering. A species that could match hive mind coordination without sacrificing individual thought would be incredibly adaptable. "There is more, my queen," Kefta continued. "Some of our own drones have begun to display unusual behavior after extended contact with human prisoners. They ask questions. They make suggestions rather than simply following orders." This was the most disturbing news of all. The hive mind depended on absolute conformity. If individual thought began to spread through the Empire, it could destroy everything the Veltar had built. "Terminate the affected drones," Zexandra ordered, "and increase security around the human prisoners." "Yes, my queen. But there is another matter. Long-range sensors have detected unusual activity in the rim sectors. Something has awakened the old ruins on Threshold Prime." Zexandra felt a chill that had nothing to do with the bioship's temperature. Threshold Prime was a dead world on the edge of Veltar space, site of ruins that predated the Empire by millions of years. The Veltar had always avoided that system, guided by ancient genetic memories that warned of danger. "Dispatch a probe fleet to investigate," she ordered. "But maintain maximum distance. If the predecessors have truly awakened—" She did not finish the thought. Some things were too terrible to speak aloud, even in the privacy of the hive mind. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Bay Minje addressed the largest gathering of alien diplomats in human history. The Council Chamber of the United Nations had been expanded to accommodate representatives from dozens of species. 6 months ago, Bay began, humanity stood alone against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. Today, we stand together, with friends and allies who share our determination to remain free. The assembled diplomats, some humanoid, others utterly alien, listened intently. Among them sat Ambassador Velnox, son of the Zentari admiral who had died warning about the Veltar threat. He had become one of humanity's strongest supporters. "The Galactic Defense Alliance is more than just a military organization," Bay continued. "It represents a new way of thinking about civilization itself. We have shown that free beings working together by choice rather than compulsion can achieve anything." "What of the reports from the Rim worlds?" asked a delegate from the Keth Confederation. "Our scouts report strange energy signatures and gravitational anomalies." "We are investigating these reports," Bay replied. "Whatever we find, we will face it together. The age of isolated species fighting alone is over." As the council session continued, Admiral Dohyun's fleet was already traveling toward the mysterious signals detected by the New Horizon. The journey would take several days, giving him time to study the preliminary reports. What they found would challenge everything humans thought they knew about the galaxy. The ruins on Threshold Prime were not just ancient, they were impossibly vast, covering an entire continent with structures that defied understanding. "Sir," reported Dr. Nam Seoa, who had joined the expedition to study any new alien technology, "these readings don't make sense. The power signatures are off the scale, but they're not like anything we've encountered before. Veltar technology? Doyen asked. No, sir. This is older, much older, and it's definitely not biological. These are machines, but they're built on principles we don't understand. As the fleet approached Threshold Prime, strange things began to happen. Electronic systems malfunctioned without apparent cause. Crew members reported vivid dreams filled with alien symbols. Some claimed to hear voices speaking in languages that had been dead for eons. Admiral, called out Captain Suyong from the Soul's Pride, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the planet's surface. Something down there is powering up.